Tell me when you're ready.
I'm ready.
Okay. Okay. Good morning, CBC fam.
New stick particles.
Okay,
Not a ma.
today. Yeah, what you got?
It's called Why Not a Mas. It's a particle stick. Just got them in. Y'all gotta come get it. It's supposed to be pretty good. That's why I got it. It's out of Santiago. Let me show you the band, bro. And ladies, I know y'all like sticks too. Come get with it, bro. What?
What have you heard about that stick?
Well, it's not a full body. It's a medium body. It's got a real neat design. And it's got Santiago, so it's Dominican tobacco. It's a Dominican stick, so it's going to be woody. But see the band, so it's going to be a little creamy. Bro, I'm hungry today. We didn't eat.
Well, you've been pretty active this morning, so I'll pour my tea. Bro, watch this. With my tea. You turn the
What kind of tea is that?
top. Oh, good question.
Oh, that is cool.
It is turmeric.
Where do we get that?
Ginger.
We always got
I
stuff
it.
that I have no idea
I got it.
how it got
We
here.
didn't get it. I got it. This is turmeric ginger tea. And
I think that spelled turmeric.
You think it's pronounced turmeric?
Mm-hmm.
Well, I think it's pronounced turmeric. You guys can put it in the comments what you guys think it's pronounced. But
Bro,
I think it's pronounced turmeric. There's lighters
so
right there.
frustrating.
It's right there.
I just got this thing now.
Anyway, this is turmeric ginger tea. I had this a couple days ago.
It's for you when your lighter is a little empty and you want to get, you can do that. A little trick for you newbies.
Show me how to do it again.
You shake it up a little bit. They pull some of the juice where I am hungry.
Okay. Okay, so question for today.
All right.
Happy Friday, by the way.
Yeah.
So my question, I think I know the answer, but I want to hear it. I want to know if I'm right.
There you go with that soft voice again.
This is just my talking voice.
So
okay,
smooth.
question. So here's a question. When you were thinking possibly of opening up the cigar shop, but you know, nothing, what you weren't sure, but what I want to know what pushed you over the edge? What experience? What comment? What was it that made you finally say, you know what? I'm gonna do it. I'm gonna do it.
That's easy. So.
Okay, real quick, just side note. Over there's a chandelier. Do you see that chandelier way on the end?
Yeah.
It looks like one of the glasses is falling out. Do you see that?
Yeah, it is.
It's dangling low.
Yep, I'll have to fix that before I leave.
Okay, anyway, what
puts me over the edge is
to finally do it.
You remember when I went back and got okay, I have a degree in in business administration with an emphasis in accounting. I have a master's degree. So I decided I wanted to take the CPA. Remember that?
Mm-hmm.
And so when I went and took the CPA exam, they said, well, you need, I wanted to brush up on accounting. But I'm actually maybe 10, 20 hours short from an actual accounting degree. It's an emphasis in accounting. Well, anyway, I went back, got that degree, went to go set for the exam. But in the process of doing all of that, I start sending out resumes because I thought I'll go ahead and see what type of salary I can draw, with the CPA, blah, blah, blah. And I wasn't satisfied with that. Matter of fact, somebody offered me a job and the hourly rate was like $25 an hour or something like that. And I thought, it just didn't make sense. And out of frustration, I thought, unless you're earning money for yourself, you're not going to really draw your worth. And so that instance, when I took a part-time job too
Mm-hmm.
at Nabi or
Mm-hmm.
whatever, and
In addition to your working at the school.
working at school, I thought, well, because I wanted to see, I just kind of wanted to put the feelers out there.
Just to clarify, you're an accountant by trade. Like,
Yeah,
you're
yeah,
the CFO
of
of
a
a charter
charter
school here in
school.
Kansas City.
Yeah,
And
it's
how long were you there?
20 years or
At
more.
this point?
Yeah,
I
20
thought
plus
you were
years.
there more. Yeah.
Yeah,
Go ahead.
20, whatever, 20.
Well, they just celebrated the
2001,
25th.
25, so probably 23, 24 years.
Yeah, go ahead.
So anyway, working at that company and the experience there, because even though you have all of this experience and a CPA, if you don't if you don't know someone or have an inlet to some company, they're going to start you with not enough money, not at least what you think your worth is. And so out of frustration for that, I thought, unless I'm doing something on my own, I'm just not going to make what I think my value is, whatever that number is. It certainly was more than 25 an hour.
Well, I think to kind of look back at that time frame, though, you were looking at possibly moving, because I know you did an interview in Austin.
Yeah, an interview
for
at
a CFO in Austin, which
Yeah.
you would have got more money, but you were thinking, like, is it worth
picking
the
up
more
the
money
family and
to
moving for
travel?
an
Yeah.
extra
To-
whatever
yeah.
amount a year. And I thought, no, and just out of frustration from looking around, and then I thought, I've worked for people long enough, but that was kind of the turning point when I took that. I worked a couple of weeks at that. It was a non-for-profit, and just thought. And then they let me go. Remember, they let me go on my birthday.
Mhm.
And it was kind of, I think the lady who I worked for there might have been a little intimidated with my education and experience, and afraid that I would take her job. That's
Because
what
they liked you on paper.
they liked me on paper until they
Yeah.
saw whatever. And so just out of frustration for that, and then you don't want to just be.
Hey, just real quick to go back to that. They liked you on paper, but one thing I noticed that you mentioned was they wanted you to use some kind of software that you were like, I'm a real accountant. Real accountants don't really use this software.
Yeah, the software they wanted me to use.
We build spreadsheets and so on and so
It
forth.
just didn't make sense. It was just real simple. And I was going to say something.
Oh, sorry. Go ahead. I interrupted. Sorry. Your thought. We were talking about.
Shoot, I don't know.
Take some deep breaths and get some oxygen in there.
I was going to say, once you kind of get out and you realize that people, like, because of the experience that I had is specialized too.
Mm-hmm.
It's governmental accounting, and I've had all of this years in that little small segment of accounting. For me to kind of get into corporate accounting, and I wasn't necessarily interested in that, because then you'd have to go through all the politics of that. And then that's what I was going to say. I wasn't interested in building a career at my age, starting over. So it's just, it was just a whole combination thing, but that was it. And just when that lady talked to me, and I could tell that she was intimidated with my experience and afraid that she possibly could lose her job or whatever, just out of frustration. And I thought, unless you do your own thing.
What made you go get that additional degree? Was it just because you were trying to figure out, look, is there a different way I can make more money? Were you
because I was so close, and then
it's something you started but wanted to finish?
It's something I started and didn't finish.
Mm-hmm.
And then I hadn't and I hadn't really been in accounting in school for so many years, and I wanted to set for that exam, so I wanted to kind of refresh,
Mm-hmm.
you know,
Mm-hmm.
and uh, and I was only maybe 20 hours short from that actual degree, so I thought it would look good on the resume to have another degree,
Mm-hmm.
to have business, accounting, MBA, but then you start doing all of that, and you think, I've worked for Phyllis for so long. I didn't want to. I didn't want to get into corporate America, corporate, having worked in a small space for so long, only dealing with a small number of people. So that was, I just wasn't thinking.
Mm-hmm.
I just didn't think that through.
Mm-hmm.
And but once I did that, and I thought, I don't want to do this,
Uh-huh.
you know.
Yeah.
And so I finished up the accounting, and then that experience at that place when the lady called me on my birthday and said, like, well, we're not going to really we're not going to
It's
use
not
you.
really working out.
It's not going to work out. And I thought, yeah, I know what this is. So after that, I thought, then I got with you and we talked about it. It's like, why don't we just do our own thing? And I was thinking about retiring because I know I've been working in the same space for so long. I thought, why don't we do something on our own that we both enjoy?
Mm-hmm. Again, kind of again. Because we
Again,
had, I was talking to Dave Barrett yesterday. Shout out to Dave Barrett.
they met McPherson College.
We can talk about that on a different segment. We met at McPherson College. Anyway, talking to Dave Barrett, we were talking about, and I was like, he asked a question about kind of stepping out and doing this. And I was like, at some point you gotta, that's why I said that to you this morning. At some point you gotta gamble on yourself. Like you gotta gamble
Take a
on you.
risk.
So you may not gamble on somebody over there, but at some point, if there's something you want to do, you gotta gamble on yourself. And if you don't gamble on yourself, that tells you something. There's something that you're not
Yeah.
either doing or don't have or whatever. But that's why this morning when I said you want to wager, are you gonna get that chai tea? And you was like, no, I don't want to bet. And I was like, oh, you don't want to bet on yourself? That's why I said that. But anyway,
Because
but at some
you
point you
be
gotta.
tricking me, and I felt like that was a trick. Like, like you do your kids. I bet you won't do it. Like, oh, I'm gonna do it. Like, man, I'm gonna get it. That's what I felt like you
I
were
just
tricking
can't
me.
tell you how many times I ask you for something. You say, I got you. I got you. Don't worry, I got you. And then when you get home or you get back here or
No,
whatever it is you
you're
are,
just smart. You could be
no,
playing the mind
no,
game.
you don't always
Like, bro,
remember.
I bet you don't do it. Like you said, I bet you won't be quiet. Yes, I am.
You know what?
You know what I'm saying? No, that's what I felt like.
Okay. No, it was just, I made that comment because I was talking to Dave Barrett about you got to gamble
I
on
did get the
yourself.
chai tea though.
That just
It's
means
up there.
I feel like if people gamble on themselves, when you do that, it's almost like you're saying, I know I can, I know I will, blah, blah, blah. But when you don't, when you're not willing to gamble on yourself, that means, I don't think I'm going to follow through or something to that effect.
Honestly, too, speaking to that, I really have to put some thought in as to why I know why I thought about doing it, but and then just taking the leap and doing it.
I was telling Dave too, our
Yeah.
personalities are so perfectly like two pieces of puzzle that are perfect
Yeah.
because you are definitely a risk taker. Like, and I told him like just different spontaneous things you've done throughout our marriage, like just spontaneous. But I, on the other hand, am such a planner and I've even told him this, that sometimes when you do like personal spontaneous things, that because it didn't get planned out, I get frustrated and I'm like, oh, and I have to kind of step back and go, but he
Yeah.
was doing this to be nice or doing this to surprise me or doing this, whatever. So, you're such a spontaneous guy and I'm such a planner
That
that
is perfect.
it is perfect because even, and I was telling Dave this yesterday, like even there's times where when you come up with an idea or you say something and I ask you questions to kind of help me put my mind around it and figure out the logistics of it, not what you want to see, but
Mm-hmm.
there's so much logistics that goes around with any event
To
or
make that
any
happen. For
activity
sure.
that there's
Yeah.
sometimes when I ask you questions that it frustrates you. Sometimes you have said, like, when I'm asking questions, you're squashing my dream. I'm like, no, I'm not trying to squash your dream. I'm trying to figure it
How
out
we gonna do
from
it?
all angles so I can help you succeed in it.
Somebody asked me that the other day about you, like what's Carolina's role? I said she's kind of like the rubber that meets the road. Like I come up with some idea, and then you flesh it out and do it. Like, you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
So she's operations. I was like, no, not necessarily operations. She's really the person that puts legs on something that I come up with to do.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
So where were we?
Okay, sorry, we had a customer. We were talking about me being basically organization.
Yeah,
and
you're
you
the
being
you're the legs.
ideas.
Ideas.
Now, here's what it works great for the most part, but here's where
What
I
you mean for the
find
most part?
I'm about to tell you. Here's where I find the disconnect, where we have a problem sometimes.
Here we
Sometimes
go.
to get you to make a decision is so rough sometimes. Like, hey, William, what do you think? When I have ideas, you're leery, like, I don't know. But when you have ideas, you're like, okay, let's do it.
Yeah,
You know?
that's true.
But when I have ideas and I go, hey, I want to do this. This holiday's coming up. Let's do this.
That is true.
To get you to finally say yes. I mean, and you always say, nah, I don't want to do that. But then as we get closer to it, like 2 days before, you'll go, you wanted to do this. Let's go ahead and do it. And I'm like, it's 2 days from now. And by that time, the marketing window has passed.
Yeah, like when we had that New Year's thing.
Yeah, I remember
I mean,
talking
that
to you
actually
about
was
New
a
Year's.
great thing, but we waited too long to kind of put it out there. I waited too long. There's another thing you came up with, but that New Year's Eve thing that we did, I waited too long to give you the green light on that. And part of it is too is I'm a little bit of a control freak. If it's not my idea,
That's the problem.
just being honest. Transparency
I'm glad
makes
you're
for
being
great
honest.
teaching. If it's something I didn't come up with, I'm like, but we're gonna do better about that.
Okay. I got more tea when our customer came in. So
This cigar that you guys got to try, it's actually
Yes.
pretty good. It's not harsh.
This is so cool.
It's a medium body. You know who wouldn't like this because he likes dirt sticks. What is that boy's name? Austin.
Mm-hmm.
If it ain't like dark and black and strong enough to like make you like faint after you smoke it, oh, it's not a good stick. Shout out to Austin. But to the normal person, this would be a great stick.
Okay, next thing I want to talk about when I ask you. Okay, let me go back. I also thought, so your experience with getting that part-time accounting job and then them firing you on your birthday, I think that was one thing.
Wasn't the firing, it's parting the ways. Firing is way too harsh.
Okay. Okay. But I think
Dang.
the other thing that kind of pushed you like, yeah, I'm gonna do something was when we went to Mexico.
Yeah.
And you saw all those people
Cabo.
like on the street and they were just like hustling.
Hustling.
There was like, I remember the last day, well, every day we were there was this little old
That
lady
was very
that was
impressive
sitting on
place.
the steps of a restaurant.
Mm-hmm.
And but there was a day finally at the end, I was like, okay, let me go ahead and buy my thing from her before we leave. But you were like, she sits here every day. Like when we come out, she's here. When we leave and come back,
I was
she's
impressed
here.
with that
Like,
place.
yeah, so
I was impressed with the work ethic. Like I think in America and Western thinking, maybe in Europe or whatever, European thinking, we're on a schedule. You start work at 8 and at 5 you go home and your day's done. But you're working for somebody.
Mm-hmm.
But in those places, everybody's an entrepreneur.
Mm-hmm.
An entrepreneur.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody's hustling. Everybody's got something that they're selling, and it's theirs. And whether it's trinkets or trash, trinkets not trash, but trinkets or whatever, trinkets and treasures. I mean, they hustle. I mean, whether it's Like even when we just got back from Nassau, we just got back from the Bahamas, and that lady was driving the van.
Mm-hmm. Our tour guide lady.
Our tour guide. Well, that's not all she did.
Mm-hmm.
That was her business. That was she's contracting her service there. And then you could tell she sold things. She sold goods because she took us to that place on purpose.
Yeah, she took us to all the places that she got a kickback.
That she got a kickback on. Yeah. So everybody's hustling in a good way. Yeah. It's a good hustle. But here we go to a job and we get our W-2, and then at the end of the year we try to put back money so that we can not work anymore or whatever, retire. But in that country, or in where I saw in Cabo, or what I saw in the Bahamas, those people work, and it's not just work; it's a way of life for them, and they enjoy it. And so that was another thing that kind of took. That was another thing that thought, man, we don't have the work ethic here. Mm-hmm. We want to work for somebody, get a check, put it in the bank, and put it in a 401k, and then at the end of our working career, live off what we've saved. Mm-hmm. But that's not. First of all, it's not practical, and it's not biblical. Mm-hmm. Nobody retires. Everybody, if Scripture says if you don't eat, you shouldn't work, mm-hmm. or if you don't work, you shouldn't eat. Mm-hmm. I mix that up. So we need to work, and it's edifying. It helps you. It helps you to navigate through life and deal with people, and to use your life as ministry when you're working with people, and you're learning how to grow and mature because you're having conflict that you're having to work through.
Until you get to a place where you
can't work. But even then, you work. Your dad works.
It reminds me,
and he's 80. But he works. But he still works. He
doesn't work a job.
But he gets up to do something, to do wash, to do this or do that.
That reminds me of a time when we were at church once, and we were having a world conference, and we had all these missionaries in from out of
Shout out to Graceway.
So we were volunteering to cook breakfast for them or to make lunch, whatever. I remember the week that I signed up for that world outreach conference. Yeah. I got there that morning, and I was like helping make breakfast, so on and so forth. Then we cleaned up, then we made lunch, cleaned up, and then the next, we stayed, some of us stayed to kind of really clean up the hall that we were in. The next morning, when we went home, the ladies were like, who were over it, were like, see you tomorrow at such and such o'clock. And I was like, wow, 5 o'clock? Like they wanted us there early, like at 5, so we could start cooking and prepping. So the next morning I got there at 5, but I was like, wow, like I'm tired. And so literally by the 3rd or 4th day of World Outreach, I was exhausted. And I made the comment to one of the older ladies there, the mothers. And she was like, baby, she was so sweet, baby, you young. You got the legs. You should be tired when you go home. You should be tired when you go to bed. And she said, I can't do what you're doing. I can't serve the way you're serving. She said, but what I can do is I can pray. So she said, so where I'm at now, my job is to pray. Mm-hmm. Where you're at with those young legs, your job is to do
the work.
So that was just such a lesson for me. Like, what am I complaining about? Because she literally couldn't do much,
But she saw that as a job for her, is to encourage you to work. So that's a work.
Yeah.
It's just a different level.
Different kind of work.
But to her, that was work.
Yeah.
To encourage the young people. And so.
But she was kind of directing us, but she was in her wheelchair and she was sitting there going, this goes there. Yeah. So, which was helpful because somebody needs to be in charge.
Somebody's got to be in charge.
And someone who's done it for a long time. And she had. So, I mean, for us to.
But that's work.
Yeah. Yeah, that was her work, but I just learned from that.
You always tell that story
because it
must have been impactful.
It was impactful, yeah. For
you
sure.
Tell that story. You've told that story a lot.
You want me to stop telling it?
No, I'm just saying it was. I'm just making a comment. It was impactful.
Yeah, it was.
Because you've told that a lot.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so I want to talk about when you decided like this is what we're gonna do. I mean, I know you came home and you said, this is what I'm thinking, this is what I want to do. Are you on board? And so once I was on board, we were like, okay, let's figure this out. I remember we went to Tennessee. And okay, so
Shout out to David Off Blends. That's where we got
David
the
Off
names.
Blends, yeah.
David Off
I
Blends.
remember before that, if you took me to a cigar lounge, it was always real smoky and dirty and dark and ugh. And
Yeah.
I was like, okay. So, and I can remember once, I'm not going to say who it was, but one particular cigar shop, we went, and like after about 20, 25 minutes, like
You
my
went and sat
face was
outside.
hurting.
Yeah, I remember
So I
that.
was like, I got to go out there because my sinuses were starting to hurt. So,
Dungy place.
anyway, so when we went to Tennessee, we were just happy to be walking down the street, and you were like, hey, there's a Davidoff cigar lounge. Do you want to go in? And I was so reluctant. I was like, oh, because I thought, here we go again, another smoky, dirty, basement looking place. And when we went in, I was like, okay, we can go. But if my face starts to hurt, I'm leaving. And you were like, okay, let's just go. And I was so shocked when we went in that it was upscale, that it was nice, that the furniture was nice. Mm, I could breathe.
It was real nice.
Like I could breathe.
Yeah.
And then they had a bar in the back that they had mixed drinks.
They had food in that place?
Wine. No, they didn't have food, but I was surprised that they had stuff that predominantly ladies like wine and mixed drinks.
They had espresso.
And and that's the other thing is we saw it on the menu, espresso, and the guy was like, oh, well, we got a machine in the back. And he made one off a machine they had in the front, which was like one of those little tiny automated
But he went
machines.
And made us a real espresso.
Yeah, and I was like, this is what you got? He was like, well, I got a real one in the back. I said, let me see. So he took me to the back.
Remember that?
And he let me see the machine they had. So he made us a real one. So I was like, okay. So I remember leaving there, having some takeaways. So I remember saying, okay, when we do this, no, we hadn't, but these are things that we were just pondering. Like, what do we want it to look like? What do we want it to feel like? We were asking all those questions. But I remember leaving there going, okay, having that espresso machine there was great. Like that was an added touch. I remember saying they have wine and they have different drinks for the ladies, so the ladies don't feel like it's not a welcoming place, because that's always how I have felt before going to cigar shops, like ladies aren't welcome. But it could be, and yes, for sure. But I think you said, did they have food? Because there was a couple there that brought food in at one of the tables, and they ate their food. Then after they ate, he just kind of leaned back and smoked a cigar, and she got some wine. So I just felt it was a place that was all encompassing for everybody, like men and women. It wasn't super dark. So, I can't read very well in the dark. So, for me, it was like, oh, I can read this menu. So there was a lot of things that we took away from it. Like, this is how we felt coming in. This is what we saw, and I think that was for us, like, a point where we made like
some
our
ideas. We certainly took away some ideas.
For sure.
Because what I liked about that place is and I haven't been able to pull that off here, but their whole humidor door was all glass.
Yeah.
I don't have the money to do that. The whole thing was glass. It was behind the wall.
Yeah.
I was impressed with that.
Yeah. So I want to talk about now. So going from what pushed you to do it, how you got some ideas, which was like Davidoff and some other places that we have seen and visited, is why we kind of do some of the things we do, what we liked about it, what we was like, that wasn't good, we didn't like that, so we kind of left those things on the floor. But once we got here, there's some things. I was talking to someone yesterday. I was like, there's some things that happened not by choice, but it was a have to here once we opened. Like initially, when we first started talking about it, I had mentioned, let's do live music. And you were like, I don't want to be a club. I don't want to be a club. And I was like, okay. So I kind of didn't really mention that very much after that. I want to be a cigar lounge where it's, you can rest and blah, blah, blah. But once we did everything here, did the build out, and then the city came in and they're like, hey, no smoking. I mean, that's a whole different story, but we ended up having to do like revisiting that and saying, well, what can we do with this space?
Came from Denise.
Well, the idea didn't come from Denise because you and I had talked. But I think the confirmation came from Denise.
Because we were talking about it. She said, well, let's have something on a Thursday night, a jazz night.
Because I remember, and here's why I remember that. You were here and I was home when she mentioned it to you. I think she and Antoine mentioned it to you. And when you came home, you mentioned it. Well, Denise said blah, blah, blah. And Denise. Denise said blah, blah, blah. She mentioned blah, blah, blah. And in my mind, I was thinking, I've said that. Like, why does it take someone? I was fussing. Why does it take someone else to say for you to consider it? But there you go. My ideas get pushed aside sometimes. And I remember us having a discussion about that. Like, but I was super excited because I was like, yeah, for someone else to have it and kind of confirm it for you to mention it. I was like, yeah, okay, cool. So there's some things here that we did in retrospect out of necessity, not out of our original.
Because we was trying to create the traffic, and I was fighting
the city at the time.
Not just the city, but just the idea of it being a space for people to come in. And I don't think it's that kind of space now. I don't think people come here with that, I'm going to go party. Mm-hmm. I think they come thinking, when they listen to some live music, get some food out of the food truck, if it's open, go relax and enjoy myself. I think it's still that.
I remember when I was talking to you about it, I kept trying to say, think of the Blue Room feel. Think of the Blue Room. Yeah. We could be a Blue Room up north. With cigars, and I kind of felt like, how upscale is that? Think of like old movies where you have live music and hat and fedoras. Yeah, well, fedoras, yeah. Because I wanted it to feel kind of, yeah.
All of us wore fedoras or something.
Yeah, because I wanted it to feel like old timey, like the Boom Boom Room type of feel. Mm-hmm. So we talked about, we kind of wanted to set the tone too of what this place was. Yeah. And we didn't want to wear like torn up jeans and we wanted to be dressy. Yeah. That was cool. Yeah, it was cool. I can tell you one moment that was reality for me. When we talk about that is I was sitting out in the car before coming in one time and I was just kind of touching up my makeup. And I was sitting right out front. There was a car that drove up like 2 down from me. And they sat there for a minute and I was like, okay, she's probably putting on her makeup too. So at some point he got out and he was dressed nice. He had his hat on. He walked around the car, opened her door, got her out. And I could see for a moment they stopped and they kind of, how you can see your reflection in your car window? They stopped and they kind of looked at themselves and they stood side by side and just kind of looked and he kind of straightened his. Yeah, and she kind of like checked him and then they kind of gave each other a peck and then they turned in and walked in here. But they were dressed nice. You could tell they were on a date night. And I was like this close to bawling because I was like, see, that's what the goal was.
I think we've been able to maintain that for the most part. People come dressed up, looking good, kind of their nines. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I like that. I try to dress up, but I just don't always get to.
Yeah. Dress up. Well, yeah, because you're so busy. Which I've been thinking about theme nights, and I want to do like a 40s theme night. Like the speakeasies and So, well, I think it's 40s.
Prohibition was in the what? 30s?
30s and 40s, I believe. You guys can correct me if I'm wrong. But that's what I've been wanting to do here recently. And I even created a photo.
Let's do it.
Okay. I even created a photo where it says Classic Blends. It doesn't say Boom Boom Room, but it's like, I don't know. Yeah. But it's like, it's got a picture of like people that are dressed up, but they're dressed old timey. So I kind of want a weekend or something where it's like old theme.
We had that white party that went over well. Mm-hmm. Everybody was dressed in their white. Mm-hmm. So good.
Well, that was your birthday party.
But they looked good.
Yeah, they did. They did. Anyway, there's some other things that are coming up the pipe that I don't want to discuss because other cigar shops tend to steal ideas.
As they should.
Is what we found.
Idea.
Steal it. So, but it's okay. Just let us do ours first before you steal it. You know, I want to. It's okay. I want to institute it before someone else steals it. So we got some things coming up the pipeline, like for Valentine's Day. We've talked about some things. We're not going to go too far into it, but we've talked about some Valentine's things for couples here. Halloween, there's some things. Oh, but you know what is coming up that I don't know? Let's talk real quick. For 4th of July. 4th of July is on a Friday. J Soul, I believe, is our artist for 4th of July. So, is it J Soul or no? It may be, it's either J Soul or it's Darren J.
I wasn't doing the calendar, y'all. What? I can tell you.
Is there anything different that you want to do for that night? I mean, we can talk more later, but yeah. I just want you to.
Darren J. Is that
yeah,
Friday?
Darren J. And sometimes J Soul comes with him. Yeah, so it's going to be a firecracker weekend.
Ooh-wee. Darren Kim.
And like I said, so since it's Friday, Darren usually comes from somewhere else. And so when he does, usually it's him and J Soul are together. So if Darren comes, especially on the first Friday, it's usually J Soul, I believe. So it'll be Darren J Soul, I believe. Kim Keys on that Saturday. So it's going to be like fireworks for the weekend. So we can talk later about what additional you want to do for that weekend. But
I'll come dressed like a firecracker.
Okay. You know,
red, white,
you
blue?
could. Yeah, I was gonna say you could wear like a blue suit, white, with a red tie, red hat, red tie. That would be awesome. Brown shoes, brown belt. Yes.
I need some new black shoes. The black shoes I got.
They're shrinking. I don't think they're shrinking. I think they flatten out. But there somebody. Who was it? Mr. Love. Shout out to Mr. Love. Norbert Love. He came to church the other day and he had these nice brown shoes on that were old timey, kind of. I love them. So I want you to buy some of those shoes. I thought they were brown. They were a light brown on the top, but they kind of got darker around the sides. Love them.
I've been seeing these shoes these guys wearing with a line.
Is it like this, like the 40s kind of shoes?
Well, I don't know.
Well, the 40s shoes have like it's got the little hook and then it's got the point and then it comes back like that on the tip.
No, not that.
No,
it's just,
okay.
Just a line right in the middle. I've seen Joshua with my little brother.
Are they dressy shoes or are they?
I thought they looked cool.
Oh, okay. I like old stuff. I'm sorry. As far as when it comes to dress up.
Somewhere the other night you put it on Facebook or Instagram.
Joshua, your brother. Shout out. What's his? JC. JC the Great.
JC the Great.
JC the Great.
But anyway, he looked really good. He dressed really nice. He like Mama. Him and Mama got loads of clothes and stuff. But he's like that. Like when he shows the shoes, it reminds me of Mama. He's more like Mama than he is. Anyway, he dressed.
Can I say usually the baby boys are more like their mother? Really? If you look at families, whoever is the youngest boy, like however many boys they have, the older boys are usually daddies, but the youngest boy is usually a mama's boy.
Really?
Yeah, if you just look at the statistics. I
don't want to call him mama's boy, but he's definitely like her. The way he moves, likes shopping, likes clothes and stuff like that. I don't care.
I know.
It's unfortunate.
I know. Which is why I try to help out. Can we just get you more of those pants since you like them so much? They must feel comfortable to you.
I'm going to tell you what I like about them is jeans feel hard on my body. Like they're hard. I like stuff that's soft.
You obviously haven't worn Jerbo jeans because Jerbo jeans are super soft. But
big old jeans with a buckle.
No, those aren't Jerbos. Those aren't Jerbos. Maybe, I don't know if they're expensive or not.
Over $60,
but Jerbo jeans are expensive because they are so soft. And Girbeau jeans are, and I know this because used to work for the Buckle a long time ago. Girbeau jeans were made to have a little more tush, and they were made to have a little more in the pocket, the front pocket. Oh, in fact, my manager at the time, Nate, remember Nate? He would walk around in Girbeau jeans because they were bigger in the tush and bigger in the front, and we would call him Big Chief Big Package because he always wore those jeans because he wanted it to look like he had a big package. I can't remember Nate's last name. But anyway, we used to call him Big Chief Big Package because he always wore Girbeau jeans because it had a customer. Okay. What I have, so kind of talking about how we started, what brought you to the point that you decided to go ahead and do it. But we've made some changes recently. And I've had people message me to ask, like, why is there no smoking now that you're open during the day here at the Burlington shop? Why is there no smoking? You're open from, so we're open from 8 to 3 now at the Burlington shop, but especially that guy that called me on the phone the other day, he was kind of fussy about it. Like, why is there no, I want, okay, the preacher was fussy. Well, he was fussy. And he was like, I want a cigar and I want a coffee. And I was like, well, we have the other lounge that, is open from 12. He's like, but it's not 12 o'clock yet. It's 10 o'clock in the morning. So kind of talk about what are we doing? Like, why have we changed some of this?
Okay, so part of it is we rent this space out, obviously, or lease this building, and to open it up at 5 only when we have access to it all day doesn't make sense. So that's one reason why we want to offering this coffee time during the morning. So you come here and get your coffee during the day at the Burlington location. Other thing is, to be honest, not that I haven't been honest, having you here is more important than being a part of what's going on because you, like I said, you put feet on what I'm thinking. And so Carolina's back working full time at the shop because this is really not my vision, but our vision. And so we have to give you something to do, during the day. And so we didn't want to. Carolina doesn't like to smoke all day, so to have her in a space where there's no smoke and she can serve coffee, which is her passion, works for us. So to have her here at 8 serving coffee from 8 to 3 is just, it works for us. However, people still want to smoke during the morning, so you can go smoke at the other location, at the 201 location, which opens at noon. The goal is to essentially open it at 10 a.m. But until we can generate enough revenue for that to make sense,
and until we can find someone that is willing to work that 10 to 2 time,
that really likes
coffee and people,
that's really passionate about coffee, because even though I know how to make it, I don't have necessarily a love for it like you. So it would be good to find someone who loves being a barista, that loves the coffee, has a passion for it, passion for people. Then we can open that room, and doesn't mind being around smoke. So that's the 2 major changes that we made. I think they'll benefit us in the room.
Well, let me clarify. It's not that I don't like being around smoke. When I was here full time before, I was in the smoke 6 days a week, sometimes 7 days a week. Because if football games were up there and the guys were up there, you would want to go up to the lounge and watch it up there when everyone's smoking. So sometimes I was in it 7 days a week. Well, for me, finding out later, because I was getting sinus infections and my eyes were like swelling and turning red and itchy. And so after going back and forth with the doctor and the eye doctor for several months, they finally were like, hey, let's figure out what's changed in the last couple of months. And I was like, nothing's changed in the last few months. Because at that point, I had been here for like a year and a half. And so they were like, well, what's changed? Let's keep going back. And so when I was like, well, we opened a cigar lounge. And that's when they were like, that's what it is. You're allergic to cigar smoke. And like they were kind of giving me this breakdown of things, how your body responds if you are allergic to cigar smoke, and every one of them, it was me. Stop. So it wasn't that I didn't want to be around the smoke. I mean, I definitely don't think it smells the
It's just not
best,
good to be around it all day.
but just from
All day, every day.
all day, every day, yeah, it was too much.
For anybody.
Um,
Really.
yeah, because the doctor finally was like, you can do two things. You can either stay in your cigar lounge because it's your cigar lounge and lose your eyesight, or you can get out of there somehow. So I can remember coming back and going, I gotta go, I gotta go. So I went back
That's
to teaching.
so
Yeah, so quickly because some people have asked.
I mean, just
Yeah.
Your skill set, social media, skill set, keeping me in check. Okay, William, I know you want to do this, but how? That kind of thing. There's all kind of. I've been wanting to do this forever, but I don't know how. Like, I don't know how. Do that.
Yeah.
Just even set this up.
Yeah, I'm kind of techie. I like techie. I like video. I like that kind of stuff. I like structure.
I'm trying to get it in there. With my bare hands.
Anyway, so it does. It does. It's great to be back because I feel like being a teacher, I had no extra time to help with any of the planning here. I did. I did. I do. I love kids. I love kids, and I love seeing the light bulbs. Come on. I just don't like. Oh yeah, I love kids. I want to finish it out with what have you learned, and because today's focus was why did you want to do this? Today's focus was what finally pushed you to the do instead of the here. Because here's what I tell people all the time: you can plan as much as you want, but until you act on the plan, it's still just a goal, right? So people have goals. Then they go, well, I'm going to plan out my goal, which is great. But still, if you never get past the plan to actually implementing it, then it's still just a goal. Yeah.
Here's what I would say to that.
So as a takeaway from today, from the here's my thought, here's what I saw, here's what drove me to finally do it. Now we're here. We've had to make some change because we've ebbed and flowed with this because there's some things that we were hoping would work or things that we thought initially. Yeah. So then now we've had to change some concepts. So as a food for thought at the end, what would you say?
Here's what I would say. If you're thinking about something, obviously you have to plan and think it through. But one of the things that helped me is working at the Hills for that year. That really gave me a lot of insight as to how this could work, what I could take away from that and implement here, what I would not implement. So actually working in the industry helped tremendously. And then the other thing is you just got to do it. You know, the one thing is when I signed the lease, that put us on the timeline. So now once I was drove down the street and said that's the place, went and met with the guy, gave him my deposit, signed the lease. Now I'm on a deadline to have this thing up and running.
Because we had to start making payments.
We had to start making payments within a certain amount of time.
Lease payments, yeah.
So if there's something you're thinking about doing, you have to make a decision that puts you on a track to get to the next step. Like if you're thinking about doing it, like if you're thinking about opening up a business and you need money, you start the paperwork for SBA loan. Which okay, if I start the paperwork for SBA loan, they're going to make me put together a business plan. They're going to make me come up with collateral. They're going to once you start the process, it's gonna drive you to the next step. So if it's something you're thinking about doing, you got to make those decisions that drive you to the next level of whatever you're trying to do. Like whatever that is, you have to make a hard decision that forces you to make the next decision, forces you to make the next decision, and then before you know it, you're up and running. So I guess my thought is, if you're going to start something, you got to go ahead and make a decision that forces you to something else. If that makes sense.
I would say, because like I said, the goal, the planning, I've heard someone, I just talked to someone here recently that said, I have this goal. I started, planning this out, and now I'm just doing the research. And I was like, okay, so how long have you been doing the research? And they were like, oh, for a couple of years. And I was like, okay, research doesn't take a couple of years. Like, you're procrastinating at this point. You don't really want to bet on yourself yet. You're just playing. It's still just the goal. It's still just an idea. Yeah. So until so I think the next step always includes bringing someone else into it, whether it's a banker, or whatever, or whether it's a leasing agent, or I think once you get past the idea, I have a goal and a vision. Now I'm planning. I've done my research. I think the step that propels you into the finality in the act is when you start to include someone
that's
in.
going to require information. Like,
Yeah.
when I not that we didn't take out an SBA loan, but we thought about it.
Mm-hmm.
But when I went and got that SBA loan, or tried to get it, she put me in contact with a lady that built me a business plan.
Mm-hmm.
And so once I had a business plan, then that put me in contact with, well, you got to find a leasing agent because you got to figure out how much your lease payment is going to be each month,
Mm-hmm.
where your utility is going to be for the place you want to lease.
Mm-hmm.
And they make you do a market study
Mm-hmm.
for a business plan.
Mm-hmm.
And all of those things helped me make that decision for where I wanted to be and blah, blah, blah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Bet on yourself at some point. Yeah. Gotta bet on yourself.